Imagine logging into Legion on launch day, you've got your snacks, your Red Bull, your entire evening blocked out. You're ready to slay demons, collect loot and save Azeroth yet again. And then BAM! Blizzard casually decides to kill off the face of the Alliance in the first cinematic. Varian Wrynn doesn't just die, he goes out with the most metal death scene in Warcraft's history. Fel Reaver soloed. Demons deleted. Explosion, he becomes the explosion. And yeah, it looks amazing. It was one of the most goosebump-inducing cinematics Blizzard has ever produced. And here's the thing nobody talks about. That scene didn't just kill a character, it killed something inside World of Warcraft itself. The guy made you actually want to yell for the Alliance without feeling like a total nerd. And when he died, something in WoW died with him. Blizzard pushed Anduin into the spotlight, which makes sense. He's Varian's son, the heir, the shiny blonde prince. But Anduin was never ready. His story was supposed to be about becoming his own man over time, about learning from Varian, from Velen, even from Sylvanas, about finding the balance between peace and war. Instead, Blizzard rushed it. They shoved him onto the throne in Legion, made him High King in BFA, and then by Shadowlands he's swinging around Charlemagne like he's been raiding Mythic for years. It felt unearned, because Anduin's character was never meant to replace Varian. It was meant to contrast with him. You were supposed to have the warrior father and the priest son coexisting, representing two sides of the Alliance. Without Varian, Anduin was forced to play both roles, and the story collapsed under the weight of it. Let's imagine for a second that Varian didn't die on the Broken Shore. Legion plays out, but Varian still survives. How different would WoW look today? For one, the Alliance would have actually had leadership in BFA. Instead of Anduin constantly getting outmaneuvered by Sylvanas, you'd have Varian staring her down, calling her bluffs, maybe even challenging her to Magora himself. Second, Shadowlands. Imagine Anduin's arc if Varian was still around. Instead of being dominated by the jailer and crying about it for 3 patches, he could have leaned on his father's example. We could have had a genuine father and son dynamic, anchoring the story instead of, well, ghost ads. And finally, Dragonflight. Who better to deal with dragon politics than the guy who literally fought Deathwing's daughter in single combat? Varian in Dragonflight would have been peak cinema. The point is, his presence would have given the game stability, a backbone, and without him, the Alliance just felt lost. Varian's whole arc was about merging the best two extremes, Logosh the savage and Varian the diplomat. He represented balance. Modern WoW has the opposite problem. Everything is either cartoonishly over the top, Sylvanas burning Teldrassil, Zul'Val's Thanos wannabe speeches, or painfully bland Anduin giving yet another sad speech about hope. Varian's death wasn't just the loss of a character, it was Blizzard's losing the ability to write grounded, relatable heroes, and it shows. So why did his death break WoW? Because Varian wasn't just a king, he was the example of what Warcraft could be when it was firing on all cylinders, a mix of mythic heroism and grounded humanity. He showed that you can be strong without being cruel, fierce without being reckless, masculine without being Andrew Tate. Varian wasn't always the Giga Chad we see in Legion cinematics. In fact, at one point he wasn't even one person. Onyxia kidnaps Varian, does some magical nonsense and splits him in two. One version was a polite diplomatic king, the other was basically a raid boss in human form, angry, reckless and ready to 1v1 a Fel Reaver barehanded. And here's the fun part, both halves exist at the same time. They even named the warrior half Logosh, which means ghost wolf in Orcish, because nothing screams peak 2000 edgy fantasy writing like giving the human king an orc name. Eventually the two halves fused back together, combining diplomacy with savagery. And that is the Varian we got to know. The gladiator king who could negotiate with Thrall one day and then absolutely body Garrosh the next. He represented something a lot of players, especially the dudes who grew up with Warcraft, didn't even realize they needed. Healthy masculinity. Now, before you roll your eyes, I don't mean Blizzard wrote him as some perfect paragon. No, the guy had a temper problem. He was the kind of leader who'd kick down a door when he could have just asked someone to open it. But he wasn't toxic about it. His strength wasn't about ego. It was about responsibility. Compare that to Garrosh. Dad never loved me. I hate everyone. If you disagree with me, you die. Varian, he actually cared about the people under him. He was fierce, yes, but he also had compassion. He could crush an orc's skull on the battlefield and tuck his son in at night. Anduin didn't grow up afraid of him. He grew up wanting to live up to him. And that's why a lot of men admired Varian. He wasn't some perfect boy scout like Anduin or a rage-addicted mess like Garrosh. He was flawed, but he was striving to be better and leading by example. And honestly, in a game full of demons, dragons and cosmic clown shoes villains, Varian felt real. He felt like the kind of guy players could actually aspire to be. Varian goes full hero mode, and just when it looks like he's pulled a miracle, Gul'dan decides, nah, you're done, and blows him up. There's a problem here. The Alliance after Varian's death has never really had a strong identity. Anduin, bless him, was nowhere near ready to step into those shoes. Tyrande and Gen are great side characters, but neither has the gravitas to lead the entire alliance. Jaina pops in and out depending on how angry she is at the Horde this week. Blizzard tried to push Anduin into that role, but it never stuck. He doesn't inspire players the way Varian did. He's relatable, sure, but he doesn't make you want to charge into battle. And honestly, that shift hurt the entire game, because WoW is built on this faction rivalry, and without a strong figure leading the alliance, the whole red versus blue energy fizzled out. World of Warcraft has always been full of exaggerated fantasy archetypes, but Varian stood apart because he embodied the kind of masculinity that was both aspirational and grounded. He wasn't strong because he was flawless, he was strong because he overcame his flaws. His anger didn't define him, his choices did. For a lot of players, especially men who grew up with WoW, Varian was the rare example of a male fantasy character who wasn't toxic. He wasn't power for power's sake, he was power with purpose. He taught Anduin to be kind without being weak. He showed the alliance races that compassion and strength can coexist. And in doing that, he gave players, especially young men, a model of what it meant to be a leader, a father, a warrior, all in one. When Blizzard killed him off, they didn't just remove a character, they removed that symbol and they never replaced it. Now compare Varian to what we've got today. Anduin, he's a good character, but he's all about trauma and indecision. He's not inspiring, he's relatable. Tyrande, mostly angry. Jaina, half the time she's gone. Gen, cool dog, he's comic relief at this point. The alliance has just felt hollow, and all of that traces back to that moment Varian died. So why did Blizzard do it? The cynical answer is they wanted shock value. Killing off a major character at the start of an expansion is a guaranteed way to get headlines. Look how dark and mature WoW is now. The problem is they never filled the hole that he left behind. The Alliance never got a replacement anchor. It's like taking Aragorn out of Lord of the Rings halfway through and expecting Frodo to deliver big speeches that make you want to charge into battle. It doesn't work. And that's why Varian's death broke World of Warcraft. Not because the cinematic was bad, it was amazing. And not because death in Warcraft isn't meaningful. We all know death is a revolving door in this game. But Blizzard removed the one character who perfectly balanced strength, leadership, and humanity. The one who made players feel proud to be in the Alliance. The one who embodied healthy masculinity in a fantasy world that desperately needed it. And once he was gone, the Alliance, and honestly the entire story, lost its spark. Varian once told Anduin, "Sometimes we must fight for what we believe in." And that line, cheesy as it is, sums up why his loss hit so hard. Because Varian didn't just believe in the Alliance. He made even the Horde players believe in it too. Anyway, that's the tragic tale of Varian Wrynn. Gladiator King, Alliance poster boy, and a man whose death Blizzard has never recovered from. So next time you're in Stormwind, maybe take a second to salute this statue. Because whether you loved him or thought he was just a worse Arthas with better hair, one thing's undeniable. World of Warcraft was never the same after he fell.